Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Blockchain Week. Today's fireside chat is with Zeneca, a founder of ZenAcademy, and Renae Redgen. She's a community manager at BFF. They will be speaking on Web3 education with Zeneca. And this session is proudly brought to you by CoinSpot. Over to you, Renae.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And welcome everybody to this session, which is on Web3 education with Zeneca. So my name is Renae. I am the community manager at BFF, which is a project created to welcome and onboard women and non-binary friends into the world of crypto. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Zeneca. So if you've been in the NFT space for a little while, I'm sure you are quite familiar with Zeneca. He is one of the key voices in this space. He has over 250,000 Twitter followers. He's launched his own project called ZenAcademy, which is a place for people to come regardless of their knowledge level and learn more about NFTs and crypto. I know for myself, when I was onboarding into this space, I reached out to a whole bunch of people and asked for their trusted resources. And just about every single time, Zeneca was mentioned in the people to go and watch. So I can't think of anybody better to be here today talking about Web3 education. Zeneca, before we jump into it, I would love for you to share a little bit of your origin story, because I believe you only entered the space about a year ago, which is probably feels like a lot longer in Web3 timeline. But you've already achieved so much in this time. So I'd love for you to share how you kind of fell down the NFT crypto rabbit hole to begin with.
Yeah, wow, that was quite an intro. Thank you so much. It's been about a year, which, like you said, feels like a decade, a century in this space. I got into crypto and NFTs really, I guess, February, March 2021 last year. I dabbled a bit in crypto in 2016, 2017, I think, like a lot of people, but it wasn't until this time last year that I really went deep down the rabbit hole. And it was, I think, because of NFTs that kind of hooked me in. And so I had some friends who were in the space. They'd been around, they never really left. And they started talking about NFTs and these JPEGs and showing me images and saying that, these are going for tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm sitting here thinking, look, literally, they're getting scammed. They're in some sort of cult, some Ponzi scheme. And I was genuinely getting concerned for them. Like, honestly, I've gone back and looked at chat logs and I was like, I was talking to mutual friends. I'm like, oh no, they're still involved in this scam. Like, I'm worried. Should we do something? And I think a lot of people have that first introduction to NFTs. It's just like, it doesn't make sense in our brains. Like, we've been living in on the internet and in these digital worlds for years and years and years, without having monetary value associated with images. And then all of a sudden NFTs come along and people are saying they're worth tens of thousands of dollars. But after a few weeks of that, I sort of realized, what, these friends of mine, they're smart people, they're switched on. If they say that there's something real here and there's value to this, maybe I shouldn't just dismiss it and I should do some research. And that's when I did. I started reading into the underlying tech, behind NFTs and what it meant, in terms of digital ownership. And it was around that time, I think end of Feb, start of March, that I was had that aha moment. I was like, oh, okay, this is real. There's something here. And that's when I just started going down the rabbit hole further and further and further.
Amazing. Yeah, I had a similar experience about a year ago, probably the same time my husband bought his first NFT and didn't tell me, which is probably a great thing, because I don't think I would have been too happy about the amount he was spending on a JPEG at the time. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience who are brand new to NFTs. Would you be able to share what an NFT actually is and why they are so important?
Yeah, so an NFT stands for non-fungible token. So let's break that down. Token can kind of mean anything in this world. A token in the form of blockchains usually means a currency. So Bitcoin, Ether, the token on the Ethereum blockchain, and there's thousands of other tokens that people buy and trade, and they're basically currencies. But the really important word here is fungible. What is fungible and then what is non-fungible? If something is fungible, it effectively means it can be traded or exchanged for the same thing, and they're let me rephrase that. If items are fungible, they're interchangeable of equal value. So the prime example is, say, a $5 note. If I have a $5 note and you have a $5 note and we swap them, no one really wins or loses anything. We have the same amount of value. We still have $5. But then if we each have a dog and we trade dogs, I give you my dog, you give me your dog. They're both dogs, right? But they're very, very different things. I'm going to be sad. You're going to be sad. No one wins here. And our dogs are probably going to be sad. And that's basically what non-fungible is. It's when you have like a unique attribute or aspect to something. And so bringing that back to blockchain technology, it basically introduced this whole new way of attributing digital ownership to anything, really. It doesn't have to be. So the most common thing that most people associate NFTs with is art. So people like create a piece of art. It's like a JPEG file, a PNG. It could be animated. And they say, this is an NFT. This is a token. It's non-fungible. I can trade art for your art just because, it's an art token. It'll be by a different artist. It'll have different value and different background and all that. And it sort of spurred this whole new wave of innovation where people said, all right, cool. We can now attribute ownership to art. What else can we do? And from there, we've gone on to like attributing ownership to like gaming assets. And in the future, it's going to be much, much, much more. But I think at the core of it, it's like this fundamental ability to attribute ownership to a token that is non-fungible. So we've had ownership on like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Ether and other stuff. Now we have attribution of ownership to like non-fungible tokens, unique tokens.
Amazing. And you touched on a few of the use cases there, and we are seeing different use cases and utility every single week now because the space is so young and evolving so quickly. Are you able to share some of those use cases that you're really excited for at the moment and what you think they will evolve to in the future?
So probably the one I'm most excited about and have been for a while is in the gaming space. Just because, I'm a gamer. I grew up playing games. Many people in the world did. The gaming industry is enormous. It's larger than the movie industry and the music industry combined, and then some. And it's growing as well. Like billions of people are playing games. It's no longer just people who are hardcore gamers with, a PC setup or PS5, PlayStation, Xbox. It's everyone. If you have an iPhone, if you have any phone, a smartphone, you're on the App Store, you play a game. My grandma's playing, my niece is playing. Everyone is playing games and interacting with games in one form or another. The problem is that the way it's been up until now has been that all of the money that people are spending on these games, they're flowing basically to like a handful or just like these big corporations or the game developers and game designers. Not to mention that, the App Store, Apple is taking 30% cut on transactions. And basically the people who lose out or get screwed are the consumers, the players, the gamers, the average people. And that's because we don't own any of the gaming assets. So when someone plays a game, whether it's they buy the game outright for $70, $80, or they buy, say, if they're playing Fortnite, it's a free to play game, but then people buy like different skins in terms of like clothing, outfits, weapons, all that kind of stuff. Or if they play Candy Crush on their phone and pay $1 for lives or whatever. All of that is, you're not actually, you don't own anything at the end of it. You're just paying money. It's going out there, and any sort of digital asset that you might get is owned by that central entity. NFTs give the ability for us, the consumers, the players, to own those assets. Now, why is that important? It's not, it's, if you just want to play the game and that's it, and you don't mind spending the money, great. That's like, you're not going to lose out the old way or the new way. But when it comes to when you're done playing the game, whether you want to move on to play a new game, in the old way, your assets are kind of stuck. They're locked. You spent that money. It's sunk cost. You move on. It's like, great. With NFTs, if you own those assets, you can now sell them. You can give them you can sell them and make money back. Maybe you don't make a profit. Maybe you don't make all your money back. If you get half your money back, that's better than the old way. You can give it to a friend and they can use it and they can play. An analogy I always bring up here is like back in the 90s, early 2000s, when you wanted to play a video game, you'd go down to, whatever store, EB Games, and spend $60, $80 on a CD. You'd plug it in your computer, you'd play. That was it. If you're done, you could go back. You could hand it in, get a secondhand money for it, or hand it to a friend and they can play. Today, it's all done online for the most part. If you want to play a game, you go on your computer, you download a file. It's stuck to your account. You can't sell it. And we've moved into this world where we don't really own the things we're paying for anymore. And NFTs allow us to own them. And I think it's just so exciting. And it's such to me, a perfect use case of the technology. There's going to be some really crazy and exciting things in the future in terms of, say, real estate and NFTs, music and NFTs. The future is limitless, I would say, but gaming is the one that's most real, and I think is going to make the most waves in the next couple of years.
Beautiful. I read an article that you had written on different situations where creating an NFT doesn't make sense. Are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are people who want to make an NFT just for the sake of making an NFT. And I think that, let's say, I'll go to an art example. If you're an artist and you're creating oil paintings, and then, so your medium is oil paintings, and then you want to sell your artwork, I don't think that you should take a photo of that oil painting and then sell that as an NFT. To me, that is, that's just, it's destroying the whole idea of it. It's, the product is not the same. You can't replicate an oil painting with an image. A lot of it is like the texture of it, the being able to look at it. And I think that that's like an example of, people say, hey, NFT is a thing, I want to get into it. But if you're an artist who does oil paintings or some other type of, abstract physical form, I think you should probably stick to that. And then for NFTs, it's more digital artists, people who draw using an iPad, using Procreate, using Photoshop. There's, if you want to do something animated, and, that's something that you can't do in the traditional world, the real world, if you want to say. And I just think that, there's a time and place for NFTs and for non-NFTs. And that's one example that always comes to mind.
Awesome. So you've had the experience of launching your own project now, ZenAcademy. Are you able to share a little bit about your experience with launching your own project and the mission behind it?
Yeah, so ZenAcademy is, it's a platform and a community where people can come to learn about Web3, NFTs. And, I started it last year because, so in June, July, I was at this point where I'd been trading and flipping NFTs a lot, and I was getting burnt out, and I was like, what else can I do? And around the same time, I was creating some content, and people were like really resonating with the content I was creating. And it dawned on me that, there's this thirst and hunger for like decent content on this space just because it's so new. And I think those of us who've been in this space for a while have all had that experience where we have friends, family members who come to us and say, hey, you're into NFTs. How do I get started? What do I need to know? And we're like, there's no great answer. You can't say, go to this place and go to this website and they'll have everything you need to learn. It's sort of like, go, here are a couple of YouTube videos, watch them, read these articles. Here's a list of people to follow on Twitter, join these Discords. And then they're like, what's Discord? And then at the end of it, it's like, come back to me with 100 questions and I'll walk you through and hold your hand. Cause that's how difficult it is to learn. And I think it still is very difficult to learn. We're not at that point. We don't have a silver bullet yet. But that's where the idea for ZenAcademy was born. I was like, well, maybe I can create one of those places where when someone new comes to the space, it's like, oh, go to ZenAcademy. They'll sort you out. There's information, there's courses, there's guides for beginners to learn about, why should I be interested in NFTs? What is NFTs? Where do NFTs come from? All of that. And yeah, we're working towards that. And the actual sort of NFT part of it came from the fact that, I was figuring out that if I was going to make this like my job, my career, and devote all my time to it, I would need some sort of way to pay, not just for, my time and energy towards it, but if I'm employing other people to help and other content creators and, there's running costs and website, I need to monetize it somehow. And, I could have gone and found outside investors. I could have tried something else, but because we're in the Web3 world and NFTs, I was like, well, it just makes sense to sell NFTs. And I came up with a model that I would sell memberships to ZenAcademy, lifetime memberships. And the price was 0.03 ETH, about $150 US dollars at the time. And the concept was, this is my idea. This is what I want to build towards. I don't have like an exact plan. I'm not going to tell you exactly what you're going to get, but I want to build this place where people can come to learn. And as time goes on, maybe we'll have more structured courses and, teachers and all sorts of stuff. And as a member of ZenAcademy, you get lifetime access forever. And, in the future, maybe in a year, we will start monetizing in some other way. If we have like a yearly access pass or something like that to, pay for new costs and stuff. But to begin, and if that happens, the people who have the lifetime membership, they're like, grandfathered in, so to speak. And that was the idea and the concept, and that was so we launched in November last year, and yeah, it's been wild. It's been a great few months. Honestly, a fantastic learning experience, and I've got to meet so many wonderful people joining this space and hearing about yeah, just all sorts of different backgrounds people are coming from, and watching their journeys as they start to learn and understand about this crazy world of Web3.
Yeah, it is a crazy world. One of the things I wanted to touch on was at various points over the last year, we've seen kind of this frothiness in the market, and we've seen some projects come in and they have these hype machines before they drop, and then after the mint, their prices kind of pump and dump pretty quickly. Are you able to speak to that, and also the importance of kind of going back to first principles and for the work starting after the drop, and for that to be, you know, creating trust within the community, creating long-term value, and having that vision for the project?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here. I think in terms of the frothiness of the market and these projects that, you know, have these hype machines and then they pump up to insane prices and in many cases dump. I think that's sort of a sign of just the general immaturity of the market. Like, we're really early on. There's not that many projects. There's not that many market participants. And this is all, we're dealing in insanely speculative assets. So when it comes to evaluating NFTs and valuing them, there's really no good playbook. There's very little tangible value to these. There's no like price to earnings ratio. There's very few in the way of like actual assets and stuff that these projects own. And so a lot of the valuation is based on what do other people value it at? And, you know, that is clearly, you know, that's when we get into the territory of like, that sounds like a bubble. And, you know, a lot of these projects act and behave like bubbles because it's based on hype and speculation. And I don't know whether the entire space is in a bubble or not. But I know that certain projects certainly behave like that. And I'm certain that many projects are going to exist and thrive, you know, years, decades from now, and be worth much more than they are now. However, there are a lot of projects that aren't. And I think because there's so much money floating around, it has attracted people to just trying to jump on the hype train and try and capitalize and like pump out a project, hype it up, without like really the desire, the plan to actually follow through on delivering anything. So, and unfortunately, sometimes they take off. Sometimes the market, you know, buys into their hype and the speculation of it, mints it out. They give the founders a bunch of money, and then, you know, people on the secondary market start buying in because they get excited and they think, you know, oh, other people think it's valuable, so maybe it is. And then it comes crashing down when, you know, all the hype and the smoke and stuff fades away. It's unfortunate, but I think it's just a sign of like the immaturity of the market. And as time goes on, we'll see less of that. Perhaps there'll be regulation at some point to limit it. It's hard to say to what extent that would happen, but yeah. And then I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
I think you've covered it pretty well.
Okay, great.
There was one question I have. I think we are nearly out of time, but when I sent our questions over to Greg, who is one of the people behind Blockchain Australia, he's like, these all look great, but everybody loves a sneaky little bit of alpha. So there is one last question, and that is there any project or artist that you're personally keeping an eye on that's launching soon?
It's launching soon. That's the tricky part.
Or in general?
In general. All right, I'll give a couple of, so there's an artist who's actually an Aussie artist that I really love and that I found over the last couple of months. Her name is Tiffatron, and she's based in Brizzy, and she creates these just wonderful one-of-one pieces of art, digital art, and is very engaging with her community and the wider NFT community. And she's still releasing art pieces, you know, every, I don't know, once a week or once every couple of weeks. So I mean, technically she is coming soon. And I think she's hinted that she's working on some larger collaborations or maybe collections. So I would say she's someone to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, are you able to share where people can find more about you and your project? Yes.
So for me, best place is probably Twitter. I'm at Zeneca_33. And for ZenAcadamy, the best place is probably the ZenAcademy Twitter, which is at ZenAcademy_. And we have a website coming soon. Anyway, but yeah, those are the best places right now.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for your time today, especially considering that it is 4 a.m. where you are, I believe.
Yes, it is over in Munich, but My pleasure.
And a massive thank you to Steve, Greg, and the entire blockchain team for putting this event on. I'm really excited to jump in and listen to more of the events coming.